Senator Inhofe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Hagel, my first question's not to be responded as to explaining the position, but I want to state the position or restate the position on 5 things that I mentioned in my opening statement, merely to ask you if these are accurate reflections of things that happened in the past. The first one is in 2007, you voted against the designating Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist organization. The second thing, in 2006, you were one of 12 senators who refused to petition the EU to identify Hezbollah as a terrorist group. Third, in November of 2003, you failed to vote on a Syria Accountability Act authorizing sanctions on Syria for its support of terrorism and occupation of Lebanon. 4, in 2001, you were one of only 2 senators that year to vote against renewal of the Iran-Libya Sanctions Act. And lastly, in 2001, you were one of 4 senators who refused to sign the letter supporting Israel. Are those accurate?
Well, let's start with the
Well, no, I just want to know if the statement, these are votes that took place. Do you agree those votes took place?
Well, I want to ask the letter that you just noted in your 5th point. What was the date in the letter?
The date?
You said I refused to sign a letter.
It was October of 2001.
A letter to...
Okay, skip that one. The other one's true?
Well, it is fairly important, as you know.
Well, it's very important
Senator,
because
that
I was holding the letter at the time that we were gathering signatures.
I see. On the 2008 question regarding designating the Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist organization, I did vote against it. And
no, okay, I'm sorry, and I don't want to be rude. You and I are very good friends, but I know that my time is going to expire. Others are going to ask as to why you did this. I was asking for the accuracy, and if you don't want to answer that, that's fine.
No, I just said I did vote against it, and I was going to explain why I voted against it.
I know, and they'll be asking you for your explanation. I want to get to 3 other things, and that's why it's critical that we kind of keep moving along here. One of the criticisms I've had of this administration is the lack of priority in funding for the military. While they've increased the deficit by $5.3 trillion in 4 years, the only major part of the budget has decreased has been military. Now, that's something that is pretty well known. A lot of people don't like that idea. The thing that bothers me just as much is putting the agenda, another agenda, under the military budget. For example, you have heard Senator McCain and me and others talk about the fact that the Navy paid for 450,000 gallons of fuel, some $26 a gallon. You can get it on the market for $3. The Air Force, the same thing, except it's $59 a gallon. And so the question I would have of you is just a commitment that if you are confirmed, will you confine the dollars that we are going to spend in the defense budget for defense purposes, for warfighting purposes?
Well, of course I will, because that's the intent of our budget and the Department of Defense.
I appreciate that very much. There was an article the other day in the Washington Post by Jennifer Rubin called "Our Dim-Witted State Department." It was kind of an interesting article, and there are 4 questions that I'm going to ask that you respond for the record. For people who don't know what that is, that means later on in writing. The questions that I liked that she asked were: did the sale of the F-16s encourage Morsi to crack down on his people? Number 2, had we known he would crack down, would we still have sent the weaponry? Number 3, how will we respond to Morsi's anti-democratic moves and the rise in violence against Christians in Egypt? Or, as will likely be the case, a failure to live up to Egypt's security obligations regarding Gaza? And 4, have we miscalculated the Muslim Brotherhood? That would be for the record. In the area of the global zero policy, you and I talked about that in my office. Others have talked about it. We're very much concerned. When I heard the Senator Warner and others talk about what used to be the case, the problem in terms of nuclear capabilities. We used to be talking about Russia and the United States. It's not true anymore. Our intelligence has told us since 2007 that Iran will have that nuclear capability and a delivery system by 2015. So it's other countries that are involved in that. The question I would ask you in your book, you wrote that we must once again convince the world that America has a clear intention of fulfilling the nuclear disarmament commitments that we've made. The question is, and then more recently you said, I believe that providing necessary resources for nuclear modernization of the triad should be a national priority. Do you stand by your last statement?
My last statement was...
Your last statement saying that I believe that providing the necessary resources for nuclear modernization of the triad should be a national priority.
Absolutely, it should be, and I agree with that. And that's what the policy of this administration is.
Well, I'm merely bringing out the inconsistency because when you were involved with supporting the Global Zero, or whatever that group, the organization was, their declaration is, quote, we, the undersigned, believe that to protect our children, our grandchildren, our civilization from the threat of nuclear catastrophe, we must eliminate all nuclear weapons globally. We therefore commit to working for a legally binding, verifiable agreement, including all nations, to eliminate nuclear weapons by a date certain.
The position of Global Zero, my position, some of the individuals, national security leaders that Senator Nunn talked about, including himself, has never been unilateral disarmament, ever. Never. We have, over the years, which I have supported, the United States has led in reducing the efforts to reducing nuclear warheads. There was no more significant voice for that than Ronald Reagan. When he laid before Secretary General Gorbachev in 1986 a rather bold plan. In fact, I believe, paraphrasing President Reagan, we must eliminate nuclear warheads from the face of the earth. I believe he said something to that effect. Global Zero has been very clear on this. Their effort is in line with every major national leader in the world, including President Obama, to continue to try to make an effort to reduce our nuclear warheads. But in a dangerous world, nuclear arsenals and our containment policy, which I mentioned in my statement, has been critically important. We're not going to unilaterally disarm. Verifiable. It has to be bilateral. It has to be negotiated, as all our treaties have been.
Thank you, Senator Hagel. But that's the reason I mentioned the mission statement is that's the group that you belong to. We can talk about that later. You may want to expand on that for the record. My time has expired, but I have one last question I'd like to ask. And that is, given that Iran, the people, and I'm quoting right now from Iran, people of the Middle East, the Muslim region, and the North Africa, people of these regions hate America from the bottom of their heart. It further said, Israel is a cancerous tumor in the heart of Islamic world. They further said, Iran's warriors are ready and willing to wipe Israel off the map. The question I'd like to ask you, and you can answer for the record if you'd like, is why do you think that the Iranian Foreign Ministry so strongly supports your nomination to be the Secretary of Defense?
I have a difficult enough time with American politics, Senator. I have no idea, but thank you. And I'll be glad to respond further for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Inhofe.